Yeah, we noticed that without Windows having to say anything. There we go. Okay, so first of all, industry research. There's two main topics in this lecture, and they're all kind of nicely described here in this diagram. So a lot of the stuff that I teach in this class is very hands-on and applied. This industry research is a little bit more indirect, but there's a lot of amazing details that we have available through our library resources here that can really kind of flesh out and inform your small business and give a lot more information than what otherwise you have available to you just in your day-to-day operations. So one thing we're going to talk about is driving forces of change. The other thing we're going to talk about is Porter's 5 forces. Driving forces of change are big picture factors that are changing the nature of the industry that you're in within the next 3 to 5 years. So these are things like technological change, changes in population demographics and values and lifestyles. So as the millennial generation becomes each year older, there's a whole shift in both the demographics of the population as well as what consumers like. Major changes in a lot of different industries because of generational change going on in our society right now. Sometimes legislation and regulations at the government level, sometimes economic conditions, big picture factors like this is what we're talking about. And then in the inside of this circle is depicted Porter's 5 forces, which is a nice way of capturing a snapshot of what a given industry looks like at a certain time. So it's not surprisingly given the title 5 forces, which are the power of suppliers, the power of buyers, the threat of substitute products, threat of new entrants, and rivalry between firms in the industry. And we'll talk a little bit about that, and then I'll show you library database resources that we have here at Cal State that give you a lot of great information on both of these for whatever small business you're working on. Not just for your projects in this class, but in general, it's a great resource. And even after you've graduated, as an alum of this institution, you can always come back and use these resources in the library here. So, driving forces, like I said, big picture things that are affecting the future of the industry in the next 3 to 5 years. And how do you choose what is going to be an important factor and what's going to be a non-important factor? Because we're not talking about 20 or 30 different factors. We're talking about narrowing this down to 3 to 5, maybe 7 at most, important factors that are going to shape the future of the industry. And the way that you choose which ones are more and less important is the ways that they're going to impact the industry. So things that are going to make demand for the product in your industry either increase or decrease are a major important factor in driving forces of change. Things that are going to make competition more or less intense, or things that are going to drive up or down the general profitability margins in your industry are things you want to be concerned about. And then obviously you want to think about changes strategically that you make in order to respond to these forces. Great information sources here. I think I already showed you guys last time some of these links to search tips for Google. Industry associations, there's a gazillion industry associations out there for any industry you could possibly imagine, and they have great information on their websites. And then First Research Industry Profiles is a great resource that we have a database in our library here that once I get done with the rest of these slides, I'll show you a short webinar about that kind of shows you how to go through and navigate that database. Porter's 5 forces, the next topic of these slides. Like I said, there's 5 of these. When you're looking at buyer power, the thing that is really important to think about is how many buyers are there in the market and how high or low are the switching costs. So in general, if there's a lot of buyers, no one individual buyer has very much power. If there's only a few buyers, then each of those buyers has a great deal of leverage over the suppliers in that industry. However, one thing that makes that a little bit different is if switching costs are really low. So if it doesn't cost very much to switch from one product to another, even if there's a lot of buyers, they have relatively more power because it's easy for them to switch from one product to another. Same thing with suppliers, except the opposite direction. If you don't have very many suppliers for a certain product that you need for your company or a certain service that you need for your company, they're going to have a lot of power over you because there's only a few places you can go to get what you need. However, if your switching costs are really cheap, then even though there's only one or two suppliers, you're going to have relatively more power because you can easily switch between one and the other. Threat of new entrants is basically about new competitors coming into your industry, and the two things there are both what's the cost of a barrier to entry, and then but also is there bandwidth in the marketplace. So if you look at like aircraft engines, it costs a lot of money to build aircraft engines. I can't like get into that business in my garage just because I want to get into the aircraft engine business. It takes millions of dollars to be able to get into that business. So it's a very high like entry cost to get in. The financial services business, for example, is hyper competitive because you don't really have to have any capital whatsoever. You don't really have to have a license or anything else. You can just say that you're a financial advisor and start giving people advice. So there's a lot of competitors in that business. It's very easy to get in. However, because there's so many competitors in that industry, it's not very attractive. It's very hard to make a good profit in that industry because there's already so many people in it. So that also is somewhat of a barrier to entry because even though it's easy to get in, it's not very attractive to get in because there's so many people in that industry already. That's what I mean when I talk about bandwidth. Threat of substitutes. Is it relatively easy to have something else that is not the same type of product also serve of that need that your customers have? And then finally, for rivalry, big question: how many competitors are there? But also, how dedicated are they to competing with each other? So, Google and Microsoft are really the only two players in the search engine business. They could easily say, hey, Google, Microsoft, you got 20% of the market with Bing. Google has got 80%. We're both happy. We're not going to bother each other. We're going to charge whatever prices we want, and we'll both be happy. But that's not the case. They hate each other. So Google and Microsoft are constantly trying to tear each other down, even though they'd probably be better off if they just said, hey, let's just get along and we can split the market and raise prices and nobody can do anything about it because we're the only two games in town. They could do that, but they don't because they are devoted to competing with each other. So it's not just how many competitors are there, but how devoted are they to competing. And then again, I've listed some resources for you here. Business Source Premier in particular is a great database we have with our library here that gives you great access to Porter's Five Forces information. So that's the end of these slides. Before I go on to the slides on HR, contracts, so forth and so on, let me play for you about a 10-minute webinar that goes through exactly how to navigate these databases that I was talking about, and then I'll move on with the next lecture.
Okay, so for my next webinar, I am going to talk just a little bit about doing online searches for industry information. There's two main sources that I want to talk about. One is the First Research Industry Profiles database. So we go to the databases section of the library website, sort things by title, and we scroll down to the letter F for First Research. you'll notice this takes us to a page that says ProQuest at the top. ProQuest is actually an umbrella like search engine that searches dozens and dozens of different databases. So we're actually telling ProQuest just to select the First Research Industry Profiles database. When we click on that First Industry Research Profiles link. So there's a couple ways to use this search. I always like to use the advanced search option. It gives us a little bit more robust options. So you'll notice here Hub ID 51791, that's actually the code for ProQuest to say that we're just going to look for documents that are in the publication with the ID number 51791, which is the number for First Research Industry Profiles. So now, if we want to look for petroleum, for example, a common industry in Kern County here, I know from doing this before that we're going to get a lot of results. So to make it a little bit easier, I'm just going to limit the search to the last 12 months of results and then click search. So that gives us all kinds of different things that have the word petroleum in them. Refined petroleum pipelines, petroleum product wholesalers, petroleum refining. I'm going to choose petroleum refining here as the example. And you'll notice this opens up a PDF document. You can either view it in the viewer right here or download it and actually open it to save it to your computer. I'm going to go ahead and open it to give us a little bit more robust editing and scanning through functionality. So make this a little bit bigger, and maybe we'll make it 100%. There we go. So all of these profiles have the same basic structure to them. They start out with the title at the top here. They've got a little bit of summary information about First Research as a company, and then a bunch of great information about the industry in general. So if you either A, are going into this industry or working in this industry for your career, or B, are trying to start a business in this industry or trying to service customers in a certain industry, these reports give you all kinds of useful information about the general landscape of an industry that you're interested in. So you've got an overview here at the top. If we scroll down some more, it gives you kind of a growth rating, some recent things about quarterly updates, some forecasts about the future of the industry economically, some great topics here on critical issues, business challenges. These are things that I talk about, including in driving forces of change research for case analysis profiles, but more broadly speaking, they're just great things to think about when you're thinking about where an industry that you're interested in is going in the future. Trends, opportunities, gives you some nice things here at the bottom on issues that some of the major executives that work in this industry face. Useful for conversation when you're talking with people in different positions in the industry. Also useful to prompt yourself about if you're planning a career in doing some of these functions in the future. Conversation starters, call prep questions. So if you're going to be on a call or in a meeting that has to do with petroleum, these are some good things to know how to talk about. Scrolling down, there's a bunch of great financial information for the industry at the bottom, including average financial ratios for the entire industry. You'll notice here they're actually organized by all companies, large companies, medium companies, and small companies, so you can also get an idea of how some of the ratios are different depending on the size of the company. And suggestions of industry association websites down at the bottom. Just great stuff in general. Terms that are important in the industry. This is one of the really great databases that we have at Cal State. It has lots and lots of different industries, and each of these reports is just chock full of useful information. So I highly recommend using that. I'm going to go back to the search here, And I want to point something out. You'll notice here the NAICS code, and this is North American Industrial Classification System, 324110. We could also, if you knew the code of the industry you're looking for, rather than typing petroleum, you could simply put in that code, and it will bring back the results just for, you'll notice we had 222 results before, this is just 8 results. So these are just the reports on that particular subsegment of petroleum as opposed to any industry that has the name petroleum in it. So if you know the exact NAICS code that you're looking for, you can type that in and it'll bring you to much more specific reports. There's not a report available for every single NAICS code in existence, but they do have them for a lot of them. So very good resource here. The other thing I want to point out, and this is kind of segueing on the tail end of what I was just presenting, industry associations. So if we go beyond first research, or just go to do a Google search, it is amazing the information you can find on industry association websites. So, there was a list in first research that gave us a lot of suggestions and names of petroleum industry associations. You could always also just go into Google and type in petroleum industry association. And this will list all kinds of associations that in one way or another are industry associations for petroleum. So Global Oil and Gas Industry Association, American Petroleum Institute, Oil and Gas Trade Industry Associations. This gives a list of different associations for petroleum around the world. Independent Petroleum Association of America, all kinds of organizations. Each one of these, you go to their website. So, there we go. Click on that.
Congratulations.
Of course, we don't want to be the lucky visitor. We want to just see the association. So, whenever you do a Google search, sometimes there's crap that you have to deal with. But if you navigate around it a little bit, you'll find good stuff. So, this happens to be a place where that link was basically tagged with an advertiser in some way that we had to get rid of. So, no, I do not want to change the color scheme. So you'll notice here issues and policies, meetings and events. You've got lists of upcoming meetings of the association. D.C., Houston. Looks like most of these are. Well, we got one in Georgia, there, Colorado. Don't see any here in California. Nope, San Francisco. So that's not bad. But all kinds of useful stuff. These are all meetings where you could go meet people in the industry, just network in general. They've got reports, statistics, all kinds of useful information. List of cooperating associations. The websites of industry associations are tremendously rich sources of information as well. And, you can see here, just on this website, this association talks about all of the other associations that have something to do with petroleum, and you'll see there's probably 3 or 4 dozen listed here. It's amazing how many nonprofit organizations there are to organize companies in different industries. And they all do a great job of providing useful information, both for networking and just for understanding the industry better. So, in addition to the results that you achieve from these sort of more official and organized first research industry profiles, I highly recommend just surfing around Google and finding different associations that are associated with the industry in some way and starting to surf around their websites. Another great source of industry information. And that is it for this webinar. We'll move on next with more general best practices research.
Okay, so One thing that I didn't go over in that webinar that I thought I had, I just want to go over real quick for you guys here, is how to use the other database, Business Source Premier, to find information on Porter's Five Forces. So if you go to the CSUB website and then click on Library down here at the bottom of the page, and on Articles and Databases, and then you sort all the articles and databases alphabetically. You can just go down to the letter B for Business Source Premier, click on that, and then very important, over here on the right-hand side of the page, you're going to want to click on Industry Profiles. Once you've clicked there, you've got a search box that allows you to search for industry profile terms. So sometimes you have to play around with the wording a little bit. So if you type in petroleum here, there's only one result that comes back, and it's not really the one that we want. So instead of typing petroleum, you have to try other words. And I know from trial and error myself that oil is the one that we want here. So oil and gas industry profiles, United States, United Kingdom, Netherlands. If possible, we want the one that says global, so that'd be the one right here. If you just click on that hyperlink and then click on where it says full text, that's going to open up a bunch of different reports that you can access. You'll see their different dates, 2016, 2014, 2013. Always good to grab the most recent one you can, so we'll click on the 2016 here. And very important, when it opens up, you want a document that has a blue cover like this. You do not want the one that has the white cover. There's two different types of reports that this company MarketLine puts out, and only the blue one has Porter's Five Forces information in it. So if you find one that's white, you need to keep looking for another report that's blue in order to find the Porter's Five Forces information. Once you've opened up one that's blue, if you just scroll down, you'll notice on like the third page is a table of contents, and about halfway down the table of contents is Five Forces analysis. So if you just go down to page 15 of this document, you'll notice there's a page on overall Five Forces analysis, and there's one page on buyer power, one on supplier power. It's got all that stuff in here from analysts on Wall Street that look at every industry that there is in the world and put together reports like this. So great resource, and it's free to you as part of your membership in this university. So any questions about industry research before I move on to best practices research? Okay, cool. So diving in on HR systems, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So you know, in addition to what we've talked about so far, there's a lot of day in, day out running of the business issues in small business management that it's easy to get into a rut and not find better ways to do things because you don't have very much staff. You're always sort of wearing a lot of hats, and you never have time to go out and figure out better ways to do things. So I've put together some resources in this presentation to give you some sources to go to for best practices, so you can constantly figure out better ways to do things in terms of the day in, day out running of your small business. So first of all, when it comes to HR planning, you know, your key personnel, in particular, I want to pull you to the second bullet point here, board of advisors. A lot of small businesses don't have a board, don't have enough advisors. It's a chronic problem with small businesses that you tend to get isolated and make decisions just based on your own head and staring at the four walls of your office, and you don't get enough outside advice. So I highly, highly, highly recommend, whenever possible, reaching out, getting to know other experts in your industry, and having somebody with gray hair. I mean, it sounds kind of like cliche and almost like prejudiced in a way that, you know, people that are not old don't have the same level of experience, but it's amazing when you've been around for a while what perspective it gives you on business and on success. So important to have people who have been there and done that as part of your advisors in a small business. I also think it's really important to think realistically about what each member of your key personnel can do. If there's more work to do than you have people, like, it's not going to get done. It's not going to magically get done because you work twice as hard or you work longer hours. You know, that might be a solution for a little while, but I think another big problem with small businesses is that, you know, you're in this because you're passionate about the business and you work really hard on it, and that's all great, but you don't think enough about how you shouldn't be doing everything yourself. And there's only so many hours in a day. It's very important to think about realistic workloads, and if you have more work than you have people, eventually you're going to have to find somebody else to be doing that work. And sometimes it doesn't mean you have to hire somebody else. Sometimes that means that you can hire somebody by the hour, find an outsourcing vendor. I've put together a little list here of some nice outsourcing vendors for small business. Fiverr, the fourth one down there, it's an interesting website. Has anybody heard of Fiverr? Okay, Justin has. Justin, what's Fiverr?
It's a good way to outsource to India, especially.
Yeah.
Really good with computers.
Basically, it's a website where people have all kinds of stuff they're willing to do for $5 and above. So similar things with time, etc., tasks every day, Elance. Great ways to find people to do things for $5, $10, $15 an hour. Sometimes it's outside the country, so you're getting lower wage rates than you would otherwise get in the United States. And it's great ways to find hourly work with really great expertise. And just because it doesn't cost a lot doesn't mean you're not getting somebody who's quite expert at what they're doing. Just means that cost of living is a lot cheaper in India than it is here. So Get Apps Done is actually a nice online community for code programmers as well. So whenever you're trying to get some code programming done or app development, and your small business you don't really have anybody in the business that knows anything about code programming, it's a nice community for finding experts that are able to program code and contracting them on whatever basis you're able to. So some good resources for outsourcing there. Management and operations best practices. There's this is one chart that I've actually taken out of the textbook that I used to use for my business strategy class. The 8 elements that people normally think about when they think about how to manage an organization. So whether it's talking about policies and procedures, or how to continue to push for continuous improvement, information systems, making sure how to properly allocate investment and resources, etc. It's a nice little diagram of the things that you should be thinking about in managing your business. There's also some great, we've got a pretty strong SHRM presence here. How many people are members of SHRM or familiar with the Society for Human Resource Management? Jimmy? It's a pretty strong chapter that we've got here. They've got a great website. Great website with information that all kinds of better ways to motivate employees, better ways to manage staff. Startup Brothers and startupdonut.co.uk are great websites that specifically give good advice for HR management in small business in particular. Some great ways of managing culture, motivating employees in a small business environment. So All three of those websites really great for information. Again, industry associations are great. Google is great, especially when you use the search tips with those links that I gave you for narrowing down Google searches. And then finally, I've listed 2 websites here for HR software that's specifically focused on small business as opposed to, ginormous 10,000 person companies. Really Easy HR and Zenefits.com are 2 companies that are specifically focused on doing HR software systems for small businesses. So some good information for you there as well. Systems-wise, you've got the basics, a lot of which is becoming almost routine for any student, any individual as an adult these days. Your hardware and connectivity, so a basic desktop, laptop, and phone, tablet combination. Generous amounts of RAM. You're going to need some kind of all-in-one imaging device, high-speed Wi-Fi, and some kind of mobile plan with unlimited data roaming. That's kind of the baseline, in my opinion, of any small business is that setup right there. You're going to need some basic personal productivity software, graphic design, web design, and communication software. And then you need to think about databases for customers, operations, employees, suppliers, financials, especially for customers. I'm a big proponent of erring on the side of capturing all information possible, like I've talked about before, about customers and leads and prospects. So having some kind of database to manage all of your various contacts is particularly important in small business. PC Mag and InfoWorld I've listed here. Great suggestions for how to do things better with your software and your hardware in small business without having to invest an arm and a leg. Sometimes there's great articles in there on just better ways to do things. And like I said, it's very easy to get into a rut with your certain hardware and software package, and you feel like you're too busy to make changes as a small business because it's just you running the whole show and you don't have time to make changes. Taking just half an hour to read an article from PC Mag or InfoWorld sometimes can really spur you to make some good changes in the way you run your systems in your small business, so I highly recommend it. I've also got a digital virtual world white paper, which is a little bit out of date at this point, but I want to point you to it. I've got a white paper here that I put together about 4 years ago. Kevin, yes?
Can you expand on customer database management?
What do you mean? Expand.
What you said was customer database.
Yeah, it's important to have one, first of all. So in the customer lecture that I did 2 weeks ago, I think, I was talking about Salesforce.com is a really good software for that, but also just using an Excel spreadsheet or the contact database function in Outlook or an Access database. The important Salesforce.com is a really great one, and they've got some good things for small business as well. So pretty cheap. You can get a system for there, but I've also often just used spreadsheets or Access databases, and it's quite good as well. So the main thing is that you're capturing the information and that you have some software to be able to organize lists of all your customers in particular. Does that answer your question? Okay. Yeah, a little bit out of date, but I do point you to the Digital Virtual World white paper here. Whenever I find new information about software packages or hardware packages or whatever, I try to dump it into this document. So it says 2012. I think 2014 was probably the last time that I dumped information in there. Maybe I dumped a few things in last year, but for those of you who are not particularly tech savvy, there's a whole bunch of information about hardware and software relevant for small business in that white paper there. So moving back to the PowerPoint slides. Virtual IT vendors. There's a number of vendors out there that can sort of outsource your IT function for you. ARRC in particular, I've listed as a local Bakersfield company here that does some forms of outsourced IT. Continue IT, a little bit further up there on the list here, offers desktop and network support, and sometimes it starts as low as $11 a month. So even as a small business, if you don't have enough resources to hire a permanent IT person, between Geeks and Continue IT, all these resources, you can really do a lot to get IT support on a contract basis rather than having to hire somebody. So good resources for you there. Insurance. Just talking a little bit about different types of insurance, in particular property and casualty insurance. Life, workers' comp, bonding, sometimes important, but I think for most small businesses, understanding liability insurance and property insurance is particularly important. Hiscox, HISCOX.com, is a great website that is specifically focused on small business insurance solutions. So I recommend that you go to that website in particular for resources. And again, industry associations in particular industries also have great recommendations for how to do insurance in a small business setting. Contracts, I'm a little bit more familiar with contracts than I am with most other things in a small business environment because that's what my business used to deal in. It's important to start with a template. First of all, it's important to realize that you don't need to pay a lawyer a huge hourly fee to put together contracts. You can put together your basic contracts without having to pay for a lawyer. Now, as the stakes increase, it's more worth it to pay for a lawyer to figure things out. But when you're first starting and you're just, you're just writing up a memorandum of understanding between two companies that are going to work together, or you're writing up a contract with a customer or a supplier or whatever, it's going to slow you down to go to a lawyer every time, and it's also going to cost you a bunch of money. So really important to start with a template. I've given you guys a couple of templates on Blackboard here. One of them is for non-disclosure agreements. So this one here that says Miami Dolphins NDA is a general non-disclosure agreement, general partnership agreement for any two companies that are going to work together, any two individuals that are going to work together. It's a Word document as well, so you can open that up and just change the names, and it works pretty well as a boilerplate template for cooperative agreements with new employees, new partners, new suppliers or vendors or customers. And then the Avenue 2 licensing in Brazil only contract there is a good customer vendor type contract. That was the standard contract that I used for all of my new customers that I signed up for my licensing business. Even though it is specifically focused on music licensing, a lot of the boilerplate is the same for any customer supplier contract, so you can just change music licensing to whatever it is that your business is, and it's a good template to start with. And the Miami Dolphins thing, there's a couple years ago I had a student back in Cincinnati that was doing a research project on sports management, and she needed to get some information from the Dolphins about their financials. So in order for her to not disclose to anyone what the Miami Dolphins financials are, because it's a private company and the Dolphins don't have to tell anybody what their profit is each year, and they don't like to. So in order to give her the information just for the class, she had to sign this non-disclosure agreement. So that's why it says Miami Dolphins on it. It has nothing to do with sports in particular. It's just that was what the original contract was there for. So I've given you a couple of templates that are good to get started with for any kind of customer supplier contract or partner or employee contract. Going back to the slides again here, write up what you know needs to be in there first. even if you don't feel like you're a lawyer in any way, you know, just write in as plain of terms as possible, you know, this person, Valente, is going to be working for a certain number of hours per week on the venture with Jeremy. The name of the company is called Avenue 2, and the goal that we have is to try and develop a new software app. I mean, it may sound very untechnical, but just write down what you know is supposed to be in there. Use boilerplate and, like I said, templates from existing contracts, and just get started. Once you get past that, some other legal issues that are sometimes important to think about in small business. What corporate form you want your business to take, some of the ins and outs of corporate taxes, employment law, banks and investors, bankruptcy, hopefully not, but sometimes that does come up as well, regulatory issues. LegalZoom is a great resource for small business. I've listed two others here as well. Nolo and Rocket Lawyer are both sort of do-it-yourself legal resource sites. I've looked at all of them. They got some great information there. Not to say that, you know, we just had a lawyer come and give a great intellectual property guest lecture in my afternoon class, and I agree, there is no substitute for a real lawyer. However, like Jim said in his own lecture, sometimes he counsels people that they shouldn't use him. You know, he's expensive, and there's a lot of things you can do on your own before you need to involve the lawyers. So those three resources there are great for getting a lot of the legwork done on your small business legal issues before you have to pay for an expensive lawyer. So that is the end of these slides. I have another webinar on best practices research, but I think, not sure how long this one is, about 10 minutes as well.
For my next webinar, I'd like to.
It's 7:55. I really like these webinars because I can plan ahead and really put exactly what I want in there. So I'd like each of you to go to this webinar and watch it between now and next time. But to address the fact that some of you are hungry and that it's late at night and I'm a little tired too, I think I'm going to call it a night here at 5 till. But I encourage all of you to take a look at the Industry Best Practices Research webinar before Thursday, and then we'll all reconvene on Thursday and we'll talk a little bit more about next steps for the group projects. See you Thursday. Hey, who's it?
Did you post extra credit grade?
I did, but there's a few where I didn't have your student ID number, so I couldn't figure out whose ID number. Did I not post your extra credit? Can you email me to remind me, and then I'll yeah, just email me tonight.
Okay.
Cool, thanks.
Okay, so I know what you said about the webinar. You wanted fruit trees, greens, others, and there's another one. The greens, fruit trees,
Root crops and other.
And then you wanted another page.
Yeah, so I want one
says
page
we will
about
be growing the
crops,
following.
one page about activities, one page about
Because on the webinar you
About
said
landscaping.
you wanted us to separate them into four sections, and then you said on the next page, on the following page, you wanted us to put we will be growing the following, and then put types of fruits, types of this, and then put further description coming soon.
Mm-hmm.
That's how you want it done then, or?
yeah. So
Because
here, let me draw it up here.
My thing's like super slow, so.
No, that's okay. So what I want is I want a button up here at the top of the page that says crops. Okay. You click on that button and it opens up a page that looks like this, and you're going to have a picture here, root crops, and more description coming soon. and then a picture here, and it says fruit trees. More description coming soon. Make sense?
Yeah.
And then you can have another button up here. There's going to be, that's better. You can have another button up here that says like landscaping, something like that. You click on that, and it opens up a different page. And the page will look similar, it'll just have different stuff on it.
What happened to the pencil or the markers?
Basically, these are general ones that everybody uses, and they run out of ink pretty fast. So let me grab one of mine. So this page, you're going to have one thing here that says like gazebos. More information coming soon, and then something here that says shade trees. Look at the stuff that I said.
Yeah, the on the packet. Yeah, I was looking at it too. I was just like, because it wasn't too.
Does that make sense? What I wanted?
Yeah, because on the webinar I got the idea that you wanted the 4 sections, but then because you talked about 2 other pages, so now I get it.
Yeah. So there's one page for crops, one page for landscaping, one page for garden activities, and then I want a page for best practices. And all of that different information that we sent around for like Cal State Long Beach and Northridge and everything, we're going to put a bunch of information about how other gardens are at other campuses. And then we'll have about us and contact. Okay? That's what I wanted. And I think Laura is working on the About Us page. So I need you to work on these 3, and we'll all work on this one together later.
So the crops, the landscaping.
Yeah. Make sense?
Which one is this one again?
Garden activities.
So the activities, everything that we include. All right, I see it all in the packet.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, no problem. Who's next?
I had a question about the one what you're speaking about.
What I was lecturing about, or
Yeah.
about the
Both.
networking stuff?
So like how when you went in depth with like petroleum and how you
I'm
you were
listening.
able to
Keep
figure out
talking.
all the information and about the background about the industry. So you can go in and essentially do that with any industry.
Yeah. Anyone you want.
Yeah.
Like, cell phones, clothing, computer monitor manufacturing. You pick.
Yeah, and then you can regionally as well, right?
Regionally, in terms of each country, I don't think the reports are broken down by like West Coast, East Coast kind of thing. You could probably find reports like that on Google, but the way the first research and business source premier websites are organized, it's by country and by industry.
Okay.
But yeah, you can do it for any industry.
Okay. All right. Cool. And then the webinar is still up, so we can just go.
Yeah, so take a look at that as well, and then I said that I would give you the contact information, but it's sitting on a business card at home. I just realized. So if you guys email me to remind me later tonight, as soon as I get home, I'll type in the information for the contact, and you can contact him whenever you want. They're psyched to work together with you.
So if we go to that, would we still get credit for coming to class? Would that be?
Oh,
because it's at the same time.
you would, but I don't think they're actually having it this Thursday.
Oh.
It's like the 3rd Thursday of the month.
So it's every 3rd Thursday of the month, but every Monday?
No, it's also like the 1st Monday of the month.
That's
So, but you can talk to this guy and just meet him for coffee or whatever.
Oh, okay.
You don't have to go to the meetup. You can just talk to him and go from there.
Yeah.
And you can go by. Their office is actually directly above. Dagny's. The place where we met the first week for coffee downtown.
Okay.
Upstairs from there is where it's called Mesh Co-work.
Yeah.
It's a like IT shared office space for like high tech entrepreneurs in town. You can just go by there anytime that's convenient for you and talk to him. It doesn't have to be the meetup.
Okay.
But if you guys remind me, send me an email when I get home tonight.
Yeah,
I will
definitely.
send you the contact information.
Definitely. All right. Cool. I'll
No
see
problem.
you Thursday then.
Ferris. I don't think I had your student ID number. That was the problem. So can you email me? Email me to remind me, and when I get home, I'll add your extra credit in. Okay.
So,
Cool. No problem. Yep. What's up? Cool.
The events there and stuff. I need to start looking now.
Uh-huh.
I've used databases, but I've never. It's like I didn't know that.
Uh-huh.
I know that. I knew that.
Good for you. Yeah.
Yeah, she's working on that. The thing I want, I like this, but
we need
You have more than one? I have 3 boys and they're all babies.
yeah, but what I actually want up here, I was showing it before. I want a button that says crops, a button that says landscaping, and then the crops thing will take you down to the crops section of the page, and that'll have pictures of the different kinds of crops that we're going to grow. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah.
But I love the changes.
I've been working all the weekend. Been waiting for the guys to send me that.
Yeah, the biggest thing I want now is, like, I like that. That looks fine for now.
Yeah, I'm gonna
scroll down, or like go back up a little bit. Like here, go down a bit again. This stuff, instead of pre-construction planning, I need like Eduardo was just asking me before. Eduardo's going to write up. He's going to write up a section that says like has a picture of like fruit trees, and then it says fruit trees, and we will be growing fruit trees. More information coming soon.
Yeah.
And so we're going to replace what's there now for pre-construction planning with his information. as soon
But
as
you
he
like
gets done with it.
the
Yeah,
color
I like the graphics. It
What
looks
about
good.
the new logo?
I like it. I know that the logo that I showed you guys,
This one.
I know the logo that's on the website is one that Evelyn came up with, and I know it's important to her to use it.
The carrots.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
carrot.
I mean, like we're gonna go like a garden. We need green. All the color over there like orange.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, because now they're using go green. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like if we're gonna post the logo here like orange, it's gonna affect the colors. I don't know. It's my opinion. But we can use that for our class.
Yeah, for the class right now, it's fine.
Yeah.
Let me,
Yeah, I'm gonna see you.
politically, we may be stuck with the orange logo right now.
Yeah. No,
we
I'm talking
may
about.
have to keep
Yeah,
it.
I'm talking about like our group.
But I really like what you've done, so
Yeah.
I like.
Yeah, I'm gonna send you the whole thing. This is in the background.
Mm-hmm.
If you guys wanna put it like in the office.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And 3 and that. Just.
No, I think we could actually use them both at different times. I need to ask Evelyn what she thinks we could do
Yeah, I'm
with
gonna
the
send you
logo.
the whole everything, the pictures and for you.
Okay. Sounds good to me.
It's good. I mean, like I like the website.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but it takes me like 2 days to make the picture and the designing. Yeah, we're gonna put like what we're gonna do with the garden.
Mhm.
We're gonna there and we're gonna
The
explain.
actual
Yeah,
pictures.
and we're gonna
take from
explain
that,
what we did down. And the one you talk about is gonna be here.
Yep. Yeah, as long as it has those other pages further down,
Mhm.
that's the big important
Yeah.
thing for me right now.
Yeah, I made that too. The one you mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
Here, I tried to add some music, but I'm not sure what's coming. But we try, I don't know.
So that's fine. We don't need the music right now.
Yeah,
You can add that later. But no, I like it.
thank you.
Looks good. No problem. I will see you both on Thursday.
All right, sounds good. All right, thanks so much.
No problem.
Also, I wanna ask today, the first class that we have the guest speaker on. I wrote a question on his presentation today, but he
You didn't get to it? When
Yeah.
did you write it?
before the class.
Yeah, I think he probably printed it out last night, and that was why.
Oh, I see.
But Yeah, I actually just didn't worry about credit for that. There were enough questions and he had enough materials, so don't worry, you didn't miss any points or anything.
All right, so
No, if he just, I think he printed it last night and then you added your
yeah, I
questions
did
later.
for the class, like 30 minutes for the class.
Yeah, it was he had already printed it before.
All right.
Don't worry about it though, it's
All
fine.
right, thanks so much.
No problem. See you later.
Yeah.